Hey everybody, it's me, Dratnos, joined by Tettles, and this week, instead of your usual, GG WoW content with all the ambition and Incarnation people, they are busy preparing for the MDI, which begins this weekend. September 3rd through 5th. So for those who don't know, MDI is the esport for Mythic Plus. It is competitive speedrunning, right, Tettles?
Yeah, I think that's the best way of describing it. A lot of these teams will be running through these dungeons sometimes in like the 15-minute range. I think what was Halls of Atonement for the time trials? It was like 12 something.
Yeah, it's like a 4-pull dungeon, right? You're just like the 30% count and then 70% count and then boss, with all the rest of the trash with bosses. Yeah.
So it's competitive speedrunning for World of Warcraft dungeons. Typically, the dungeons are ran, at least this season, they're ran between 19 and 22 keystone level, which I would say that's higher than normal. The 22, especially once you do have that maxed out 252, 259 gear, that 22 is a little bit higher than what we've seen in previous seasons, although it's going to be... I feel like this season's going to be a lot faster than last season just because of... so like everything has got more dangerous, but at the same time your damage has gone up because damage scales faster than health more often than not for seasons, especially with the MDI.
Yeah, that MDI key level, you can see here the ones this weekend are played between that 19 and 22 keystone level. So it is, it's high enough that stuff is lethal, but low enough that the groups are going to be able to pull some massive stuff and go with some very aggressive strategies. Look forward to things like how many tormented auras will the last boss be affected by in these dungeons, do you reckon?
I think playing 3 seems so hard, man. Because Incinerator and Varuth, the fire one, and then the 50% healing reduction, both of those are just so hard to play. More often than not, you can play Sagadon and you can play Oros Coldheart with most end bosses. So I would say 2 is the default for every single dungeon. If you get to 3, I would be surprised.
All right, so let's do a quick introduction of the teams that are going to be playing over this cup as well, because a lot of like streamers and stuff are on various of these teams. Mm-hmm. So coming up first in Group A, that is this weekend, and this is the one where we don't have any GG WoW teams, right? The GG WoW teams are in Groups B and C, but the A group is stacked. They got Perplexed up at the top, which is the number 1 seed in the time trials, and they have been a consistently owning MDI team. They've won cups in both of the last 2 MDIs, but they have yet to take like a global finals off of Echo, who are the defending champs in that regard.
Yeah, so the 2nd and 3rd seeded teams in this bracket are actually the 6th and the 7th seeded teams as a whole. 6th being Sheesh, which is a large core of the Great Push Sheesh, if you're familiar with that team. A large core of that team has come together for this MDI. There are a lot of pieces members. And then Team Name, which is that 7th seed as a whole, 3rd seed for this, is a team with Lapan, who did Legion MDI, then took a pretty big hiatus in BFA. Igloo, and Kurisu and Mikkel, who all did a lot of BFA MDI, also very high-end raiders in pieces in Echo. I don't know where Lapan raids, probably in some guild.
Yeah, there's actually so many teams that have like Echo limits, pieces, like mashups in the top here. A lot of the limit raiders are like the European limit raiders playing in various teams as well. Of course, over in Group B, you got Hill Factory and Ambition at the top, which is Hill Factory is like JB and the 4 limit raiders in that team.
JB and the 4 limit raiders. JB and his children.
Yeah, JB chaperoning the limit raiders.
Did he get parental forms for those?
Could you imagine? But going back to Group A, so that's this weekend. Of course, the important thing to note is that only 2 teams are going to qualify out of this for the global finals. The new structure is 3 group weekends, top 2 teams from each, and then there's like a last stand tournament where everybody that didn't make it can try and get that last spot, and then 1 team from China, and those will be the 8 in the global finals. Which means that the fight for that, just on paper, the fight for that second slot in Group A is going to be really close, right? These are 2 teams that are within 1 seed of each other from the time trials.
So it just like by metric standpoints, Perplexed looks like they're kind of like an auto lock for that first slot. It's not really a given, but considering that their like long storied history, how good they always are,
it would be shocking.
Also, and them also showing up as the number 1 seed, it would be very shocking if they didn't clinch out of this. Sheesh, Team Name, and Evolving are all very close. We didn't really talk about Evolving, but the most notable player that I know in this team is Shelly. I watched a bunch of their practice. They didn't put in an insane amount of hours, so for them, they have a lot of potential to be able to grow, and I think that they could pull out some upsets. So I think that the top 4 of Group A, all of them look really, really competitive here. Yeah,
Shelly Teven Warlock player, who this season, that actually is not bad. There are a lot of these teams used Warlocks in either some time trials practice, some didn't end up using it for their actual runs, but actually quite a few of the teams did end up using Warlocks in their actual runs. Not so many of the top-seeded teams, but like when I was going through these, several of the mid-seeded teams were using Warlock.
Yeah, did we want to look at some of the meta stuff that we did see across this whole entire weekend? Because we talked about Group A a little bit. The rest of the teams, Sonic's Imperative, really high-end rating guild, Pieces, Donkeys, a second Pieces team in this whole entire scenario. Apes Together Strong and Winning Lane Kick. I don't know a lot about them. I know they're European teams, both of them. So they're going to have an uphill battle being the 7th and 8th seeded at this point.
Yeah, I mean, these are the kind of teams where like they're looking to pull off an upset, right? They're underdogs coming in here for sure.
Oh, if they upset everything, if they upset these teams, then we would know a lot about them at that point.
All of a sudden that would be a very, very important thing to find out about. Yeah, speaking about the metagame, in terms of specs and stuff that work well in this 19 to 22 range. I'll start with tanks, and then you could do maybe DPS, and then we talk about healers a bit at the end as well, because that'll be the shortest discussion. For tanks, it's looking like Vengeance is still really strong, as is Bear, depending on the situation. Depending on whether you want a dungeon where you get more damage from Vengeance, or you want the big tank of the Bear. Looking at the keys we're going to be seeing in this weekend, you can see, you know, the 22s, I think those, like 22 halls, hard to imagine not playing a Bear in that. But maybe you could find a way to make Vengeance work. It's Necrotic as well, man. There's no way you don't play a Bear in there, because with Necrotic, they have that legendary that just makes them, it still works through Necrotic, Urslax Fury. So yeah, for tanks,
is so OP.
It's mostly those 2 tanks that I think you're going to see a lot of. Maybe somebody will mess around with something else, but like there are a lot of good tanks this season for live keys, but I think those 2 are just so good at what they do, they'll be the main ones in MDI.
Yeah. So for DPS, it's going to be a lot of Mage, a lot of Windwalker. I think that those 2 are going to be the staples for what you're going to expect to see like in spades across the whole entire weekend. Fire Mage specifically and Windwalker both are incredibly good. Outside of that, the 3rd DPS slot's kind of open. We're seeing a lot of Rogue. There's a decent amount of Shadow Priest that's also played. Warlock is also pretty common as well. Those kind of things are fairly popular. You're going to end up seeing a decent amount of it. Funnily enough, Halls of Atonement didn't end up running a lot of Windwalkers. It was the Rogue Mage Shadow Priest comp that got seen a lot of play in Halls of Atonement. But in general, I do think it's going to be a lot of Windwalker and a lot of Mage.
Halls, you're just pulling too big for the Windwalker to actually. I mean, they still do good damage, but it's like may as well just bring some uncapped stuff.
The Fire Mage is the main character there for sure, and you're even bringing the Shadow Priest just to support them. I think they're even playing the PI Legendary. Like that's Shadow Priest hasn't played PI Legendary this whole entire patch, and I'm pretty sure they were playing PI Legendary in these time trial runs.
And for the healers, we've been mostly seeing the Holy Paladins that do a lot of damage. JB did play Resto Druid in one of their time trials.
So okay, so yes, it's almost always going to be Holy Paladin. Resto Druid was seen because Resto Druid is very good at the other side. It was also Raging, and you're not going to run, like, okay, yeah, you have Rogue sometimes.
A couple teams ran Moonkins as well.
Yeah. Okay, so Moonkins and Rogue sometimes get see some play. I don't think Moonkin's going to see that much play as a whole, but Rogue, you do have the Soothe from them. Getting the extra Soothe from the Resto Druid is actually a really good option. They weren't, that team, Hill Factory, was not playing a Rogue in there. They were playing double Mage even.
Yeah, 5. So the rule is you're not allowed to play 2 of the same spec, but they eased up the restriction this season so you can actually play two of the same class now, which wasn't true last season. And I think that's good news because that means that like stuff like Resto Druid, Guardian Druid is allowed. Stuff, you know, the little combinations like that, Disc Priest, Shadow Priest. But it's kind of funny that it's actually just Fire Mage, Frost Mage is the best two specs you can play.
Yeah, but there were a lot of factors that had to come into play. It was also explosive in DOS, and like the Resto Druid is the explosive killer there. Holy Paladin's probably not going to excel that much at being able to kill explosives in the exact same way. So there were a lot of things that had to go right for JB to be able to play Resto Druid inside of DOS. It's not bad. Like, to be clear, Resto Druid's not bad, and I suspect that if there is a dungeon where you need to see 5 Night Elves for whatever reason, it could be Resto Druid, it could be Disc Priest, but Holy Paladin damage is very silly.
Yeah, there were a couple of cool off-meta teams that qualified here. I won't you know, spoil it too much, but I did see a Survival Hunter qualify for this tournament as well.
Dude, wait, is Evade playing?
No. Speaking of who's playing, this is the bracket for the first weekend, which again begins September 3rd. And that will be these first 4 matches of the upper bracket. And then we've got the next 2 of the upper bracket and most of the lower bracket on the Saturdays, September 4th. And then all the finals, right? Lower finals, finals, you know, all that 3rd, 4th place match, I think if we... or maybe it's a 2nd, 3rd place match even. I actually don't even know. I don't know what they'll do. I guess they probably won't even do one of those. This is just the regular bracket. Anyways, this is when all the games will be happening.
They should just delete the lower bracket, honestly. Just make them battle through the upper bracket and they go through the last chance tournament.
Oh, just like whichever 2 teams make it to the finals are through?
Yeah. Dude, can you imagine if that was...
I mean, the problem with that is if if the 2 best teams are on the same side of the bracket, they can't both qualify, right? Whereas this way they can.
Well, should have gotten a higher seed.
That's true.
And then show back up for the last chance tournament if you wanted that bad.
That's fair. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see because again, we're not going to see these teams more than 1 weekend each, right? Each of these teams will be seeing 1 weekend, and it's kind of interesting as well to see, you know, new strategies. Are we going to see teams innovating in Group A and then copying in Group B and C, or is there going to be something that, like, the thing about it is like Echoes in Group C, right? So they will have the chance to see what others are doing and then even further evolve on it. We didn't talk too much about Echo, but they are the defending champs and they are huge gamers. They got their tank back. They got Now back, who they didn't even have for time trials. And I mean, they're going to be a force.
The Chinese regional is also September 10th through September 12th. So
same time as Group B.
It's not listed here, but yeah, that's also a thing that you have to be thinking about. In the past, whenever there have been like regional play, cup play kind of things like this, you would have teams literally just like carbon copying routes and strategies, and like the strategies would get very, very refined over the course of the weekends. But with how this is, I expect that there's going to be a lot of difference in strategies, especially since we saw so much variability in the time trials this time around.
And it looks like they're altering the key levels. You know, the difference between 19 and 22 is actually pretty big in terms of how you can path. So if they swap halls from being a 22 to a 19 next weekend, right, that dramatically changes like how big you're trying to go, right?
Well, they used affixes that are also indicative of live key affixes this season. And probably the hardest one has to be that fortified raging. That fortified raging week is brutal.
Yeah, fortified. It's only 19 though. But yeah, the plague fall.
Yeah, exactly. But it's on a 19 plague fall here. But the difference between like a fortified raging 19 plague fall with explosive on it compared to like
22 spires.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Just any other plague fall variant is going to be just a large difference in what you can do in the dungeon. Same with Bowstring. Bowstring is always going to be polarizing like that. Necrotic Wake on Bowstring is...
It's a fun one.
That's I mean, it's a lot of practice that's going to have to be put into that dungeon for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how it all shakes out. Of course, rooting for everybody to have a good time, but especially for our teams over in Ambition and Incarnation. Hope they have some good times when we get to groups B and C. Group A though is gonna be a joy to watch. I mean, 6 teams that are just so powerful, and then 2 underdogs looking to steal some games off of them, steal a qualification. Speed. Yeah. Anyways, that's the end of this video. We'll see you guys again sometime soon. Later. They love it when we send them a nice long file with with a lot of stuff to fix and post. That's what the editors love the most.
A lot of stuff to fix and post. And by a lot, you mean they fucking put our names over the thing and re-render it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Editors suck.